As a horror and thriller reader, I am sick and tired of getting recommendations for the same old domestic thrillers written by white women. Some of them are fine, but so many of them are just the same over and over and over again. And I do not see enough people recommending diverse thrillers. And when I say diverse, I do mean diversity of the author. Thrillers that are written by people of color, Indigenous people that are not from the US or Canada, thrillers that are translated from another language into English. But I also mean thrillers that have queer characters, thrillers that are not about the same thing. Thrillers tend to have a set formula. I don't like that formula. So as a thriller and horror reader, I'm here to give you the recommendations for diverse thrillers. All of these that I'm recommending, I have read and loved. A lot of times I feel like when people are thinking about thrillers, they are thinking murder mystery, and some of these do have that, not all of them. When I think of a thriller, for me, it means the book is impossible to put down. As the reader, you're left in the dark about something that creates a heavy level of suspense. Could be that you're left in the dark about some aspects of a character's personality. It could be that you're left in the dark about who done it. For me, for something to be considered a thriller, it needs to have a lot of suspense. You have to be left in the dark about something, and it has to be unable to put down. Those are my personal criteria. I'm sure there's like some official criteria, but that's what I'm going off of. And this is my YouTube, so I can do whatever I want. So starting off with a bang, we have Confessions. This thriller is translated from Japanese. It is about a teacher. She teaches, I think, middle schoolers. She has a young daughter who's like 5 or 6, and her daughter is found dead. The investigation's closed and everything as just an accident, but she has a suspicion that 2 of her students were involved. So the book literally opens up with her sitting all her students down in her class and telling them, I know 2 of you killed my daughter. Here's exactly what happened. And then we follow this arc throughout the story of these students, of what really happened to the daughter. It's twisty, it's turny. It is so wild, like literally so out there. And there were so many moments where I was reading this where I was just like, she said, what? I don't know. It's just shocking. I could not put it down. Once I started this, I had to finish it like immediately. And I will always remember exactly what happened in this thriller. I'll always remember the characterization. Like, it is just all around such a good book. Next up, we have Perfume by Patrick Susskind. This one is written by a white man, which I think is the only one on this list, but it is translated from German. It's set in 18th century France. It follows a young boy, an orphan. He's born with no smell to his body. People that are caring for him find this to be very odd, understandably, and it stands out to them a lot. As he gets older, this kind of turns into an ability for him to have the most incredible sense of smell, and he uses that skill to become a perfumist, and he is also a serial killer. I saw somebody recommend this on Book Talk years ago, and I bought it because also this cover like is amazing, because they said it was like very gory, very disturbing, and like hear those words and I'm in. And it took me a long time to actually get to it. I think the reason is because like I don't read a lot of older books. I think this was first published, let me see, in 1985. I was just like kind of thinking, you know, it might be disturbing, but like it's probably going to be boring. And I didn't really have like high expectations for it based on my personal taste. And I ended up loving it. It became one of my favorite books that I read last year. I know there's a movie. I have not seen the movie yet, but the book is excellent. It's fast-paced. Page 1, I was sucked in. The main character, Jean-Baptiste, is just such an interesting, messed up character to follow. And there was no boredom for me when I was reading this book at all whatsoever. Winter Counts is an Indigenous thriller. It's set on a reservation, and there is a heroin influx that has been happening on the res, and our main character is sent on a trip to kind of like figure out how this is happening and where the drugs are coming from. This was so good. I think I listened to this one as an audiobook, which I really enjoyed. Thrillers as audiobooks just tend to be like really good in my opinion. Winter Counts is just one that I do not hear people talk about enough. Enjoyed it so much. If you follow me on TikTok, you will have heard me talk so much about The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I read this so long ago. Like, I read it as soon as the digital arc became available. Have not shut up about it since. It's about a young Korean American girl. She's just starting college. Her parents separate, and her mom, who's this really sweet but naive older woman, starts dating this really gross, yucky white guy who fetishizes Asian women. And throughout all of this, she's also trying to go to school and like make friends. And she also starts to have an absolute obsession with blue eyeballs. Eyeball horror is like the worst for me. It creeps me out so much. One of my biggest fears in life is getting my eye poked out. I know a lot of people have the same fear, but I have like nightmares about it. I think it's one of the reasons I don't have my glasses on right now because of the glare, but like it's one of the reasons why I prefer to wear glasses and why I stopped wearing contacts, because it just freaks me out. Like, I hate eye stuff. And this book did such a good job with it, which creeped me out so much. This is another one that I think really stands out to me because of our main character and like how well-rounded she was and how interesting she was and like multifaceted. And I just love following thrillers where the main character we love and they could also be partially considered a villain. Like, I just love it. But The Eyes Are the Best Part was my favorite thriller that I read last year in 2023. And I recommended it to quite a few people. Every single person I've recommended it to has ended up rating it at least 4 stars. If you are somebody that likes thrillers, you absolutely have to read The Eyes Are the Best Part. Blacktop Wasteland is written by the same author, S.A. Cosby, that wrote Razorblade Tears. I also think Razorblade Tears is a great thriller to recommend, but Blacktop Wasteland especially, I really, really enjoyed. This one is about Bug. He is a mechanic. The story reminds me actually a lot of Harlem Shuffle, if you've read that, by Colson Whitehead. Blacktop Wasteland's about Bug. He's a mechanic. He's really trying to like be a good guy, stay within the confines of the law, and like, be a good father and take care of his kids. He's known in the past as being like the best getaway driver on the East Coast. So when an opportunity comes up and he's told this will be the last job he ever has to do, he's going to make a bunch of money from it, he'll be totally fine, and then he'll get to move on with his life. He's like, okay, this is it. This is my last hurrah, and then I'll move on. So it's a diamond heist that he goes on. A lot of people are hesitant to read this one because they particularly dislike heist stories. But the heist is just the beginning, and it's a jump starter for everything else that happens and gets complicated after. Reading this felt like, okay, in movies, I really do not care about like a chase scene, right? I don't really watch like action and adventure. I love horror movies, but you know, Fast and Furious type stuff, like I really don't care about that. But I feel like we get the like adrenaline from Blacktop Wasteland that I would want from some sort of heist or chase scene in a movie. At the end of this book, my jaw was on the floor. You have to listen to this one as an audiobook. Adam Lazar-White is the narrator. He narrates all of S.A. Cosby's audiobooks. He also narrated The Spite House. He is such a good audiobook narrator. He has a really deep, soulful voice that adds a lot of character to Bug, our main character in the story. And it just adds so much like, grit and soul. Blacktop Wasteland is so good. Is Mother Dead is one that I would consider kind of like an untraditional thriller. It is such an underrated book. Anytime I get the opportunity to convince someone to read it, I do. This one I believe is translated from Norwegian, and it's about a 60-year-old main character who's estranged from her mother and decides at this point in her life that she would love to reconnect with her mother, but unfortunately her mother wants nothing to do with her and does not want to reconnect with her at all. So the story becomes this obsessive chase where our main character is following and watching her mother and obsessing over her and thinking, you know, what is my mother thinking? What is she doing? Does she still love me? She thinks about things that happened in their past, and she's just always focusing on her mom. And this obsession is so interesting to view as a reader because eventually it really dwindles down to how important the relationship is between a mother and a daughter. Even as adults, like that girlhood is always there. It's also like a fairly short book. I feel like I don't get recommendations for Norwegian translations a lot, but this one is a really great kind of thrilling story. This reminds me a lot of the vibes of my next recommendation, which is My Husband. This one's a French translation about a woman who is obsessed, not with her mom, but with her husband. Every single thought that passes through her mind is about her husband, what he's thinking, what decisions he's going to make, and she shapes her entire life around that. She does have kids with him, but she's very uninterested in her children and really has used them as a way to get closer to her husband. Love this character. This is my favorite character that I read in 2023. A lot of people would call her crazy, but I understand her. I could not put it down. And the whole time you're kind of like, okay, relax, girl. Am I being misled as the reader? Who should I trust? Who should I not? And it's just absolutely excellent. When No One Is Watching is a thriller about gentrification. It's about Sydney. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, and every single day she's just noticing things about her beloved neighborhood, like very quickly changing. Condos are popping up everywhere. There's a million for sale signs. A bunch of self-righteous white people are moving in all around her. She meets a new neighbor named Theo, and together they decide to do a dive into the history of the neighborhood, and that journey starts to become a little scary. I really think a thriller about gentrification is such a good idea because it is something that is truly frightening that happens every single day. So the social commentary along with that horror of people's homes being taken away from them is excellent. I have two more to recommend and then I promise I'll shut up. The most recent book I finished on this list is The Devil Takes You Home. This one is about a dad. His daughter is diagnosed with cancer, unfortunately. He needs to make extra money in order to pay for her treatment. So he reaches back out to somebody that he knew when he was younger, and he gets hired as an assassin. He takes the job, and more jobs follow. And as these jobs follow, a lot of darkness and spooky things ensue. This is the one for people who are okay with a thriller veering a little bit into horror. I would still primarily call this a thriller, but it's definitely genre bending and there are some horror aspects. So like if you're a little bit of a scaredy cat with the supernatural, maybe skip this one. But if you like that sort of thing, this is a great crossover where it's not too spooky and a lot of the thrilling aspects are just between our main character and the people that he's working with on all of these illegal jobs. But I think the crossover between horror and thriller is done so well in this story. It just creates such a moody shadow over the entire story of both horror elements that are going on and our main character's grief and his guilt. And it's just all so dark and juicy. The last book I'm going to recommend to you is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. And this book follows a woman. She is a professor and she is a serial killer. It does not have the like whodunit aspect that a lot of thrillers have because we know from the jump that she is a serial killer. We get to see this professor, who's also by the way, give a bunch of evil men the endings that they deserve, which is oh so satisfying. If you have any more recommendations for a diverse thriller for this spooky season, please let me know. Next up, horror is my thing, so I have horror recommendations coming for you.